Welcome back. Mr. Dotun Ojon joins us live, public affairs analyst for the newspapers. Let's start off quickly looking at the Nigerian Tribune. That's the very first paper we'll look at. The big header there, poverty rate among Nigeria's rural dwellers hit 75%, according to World Bank. And then we still hear that the country is doing very, very well. And there's no problem. I'll take one more story before we go to that particular one. Police at Motekun clash in Ondo over arrest of suspects, 6 injured. Mr. Ojon, let's start off with the poverty rate first. Just a few weeks we're hearing that, the economy is doing very, very well. And here we are, World Bank. The same World Bank comes back to say 75% are going through tough times.
Yeah, yes. So exactly 10 years ago, the United Nations had actually come out to say that one of the ways to tackle poverty is to allocate more resources to people living in abject poverty. And that's so instructive because it's opposed to the Nigerian kind of practice, our own system of allocation, because a lot of people don't get to know that one of the most important things that government has to do is not just making the money, it is allocating the money. So the logic of the United Nations is opposed to our own practice of allocating more funds to people living in affluence and in prosperity. And that's why we got to a point, not under this government in Nigeria, that we were using 25% of our budget to service the need of the National Assembly. So when you look at all of these things, you discover that we've not been strategic enough in curbing the ravaging issue of poverty in Nigeria. What do I mean by being strategic? Our poverty situation has left the physical realm to psychological realm, to the point that even when government is trying to solve the problem of poverty, there's a disconnect between what the government is doing and what the people think their government should be doing. The people do not believe in the effort of the government, and as a result of that, because the psychology of poverty says that you cannot take anyone out of poverty except such a person wants to willingly walk out of poverty. So the Nigerian people, when you hear that, oh, we are allocating even conditional cash transfer to the people, we are giving some people what they call empowerment, very annoying word, you still discover that they are not having the capacity to be empowered out of poverty. So it's a complication that a lot of strategic thinking needs to go into for us to actually come out of this situation. And it's so sad because we used to have a number of our people living in rural area. There are conflicting figures as to the percentage of Nigerians living in rural area, but I can confirm to you that we are now having about 48% to 52% of the Nigerian population living in rural areas. And once poverty strikes at the rural community, it has a way of extending to the urban areas. Farming, for example, one of the complications that we've had about the issue of poverty is that people can no longer go to their farm. Let me cite a very private example. If you've been to Akure, the airport is close by to the city. And a friend of mine had started a farm very close to the airport. Do you know that herders didn't allow him to go to the farm? They were picking everybody, kidnapping across the line at that point. So he had to say, I don't have anything to do in the farm. That's close to the, yes, that's close to the airport. That was the situation. And I'm not saying that's the present situation, but if you look at this complication of poverty, it started from 2019 during the COVID-19, and unfortunately, we've not been able to strategically prevent it from spreading. So what we have now, the economic policy of the government has further complicated the situation we had in 2019. I listened to Governor Alex Otti. As much as he was trying to not to criticize the government or at the federal level, he said something that I had continuously hammered on this program, that there's no government who understands economy, who understands the feeling of his people. You know, I came here the other time and I defined democracy as a government that considers figure and feeling. If you continue to consider figure without measuring the pulse of the feeling of your people, you are a strategic failure. Now, he said something by the past, and a lot of people didn't pay attention to that, that though he wasn't expecting that you liberalize your foreign exchange market and take away subsidy at the same time. Nobody will do that and expect that there will not be complication of poverty. So what we are doing now is to try to patch up the error committed, that nobody is having the courage to come out to say, oh, on this one, we made mistake.
Wow. Okay. I'm hoping that we can take as many stories as we can this morning. So let's go to the Punch quickly and see the big story talking about Rivers emergency rule. National Assembly counters PDP governor suit, demands 1 billion naira. National Assembly also asks Supreme Court to dismiss opposition governor's lawsuit as Apex Court sets for hearing.
Okay, so it's been back and forth. The PDP governors are saying their major fear is the fact that with what happened in River, and I have that personal fear too, that the presidency is not empowered to the point where he can just decide to remove any governor. And that's very, very important, because virtually everyone has agreed to the fact that what happened in River, of course there are reports, the president has an helicopter view of what the security situation is. But with the way the AGF actually came out to address the matter, there were concerns here and there that if we leave our democracy in the hand of somebody who can actually wake up and take out governors like that, that it will mean that in a matter of months, Nigeria will actually get to a one-party state, owing to the fact that, number one, in Nigeria's situation, the powerful ones become more powerful. And secondly, you will have seen that opposition is almost dying in the country. So these are some of the fears. And the National Assembly is trying to come out in defense of their practice, that they haven't done anything wrong, that in fact, that the state governors also have the power to take them to court, because according to them, before that could have happened, that the state assembly should have made a resolution compelling the governor or advising the governors to go to court. Whichever way, a number of people have condemned what happened in Rivers. And it's not to say that somebody is supporting Fubara or Wike, because from the beginning, I'm one of the people that have told you that one of the major problems we have with our democracy is that we have a faulty process, from even internal democracy of party. If you cannot allow those who have the capacity to win primary election to win, and you bring your people from the back, you will continue to learn this kind of lessons that happen between godsons and political godfathers.
It's bound to happen.
Yes.
That's what it's looking like, though. That's what it's looking like. Still on the Punch, Bing, I don't know if you want to take anything there, but I see this Nelfon story coming back up again. Nelfon under fire, overdose to ex-students. Last week we did talk about it. It was a Friday. Communication
issue. They said there was a case of corruption, the ICPC, and they said, okay, there's none to see here, no corruption. And people said, look, there's something really happening. They said it was in the water. And now we have seen ex-students accessing Nelfon loans. Who's to blame here?
Okay, so there was a sad story that I was privy to yesterday about a particular event in Nigeria, and somebody was telling me that she has to pay money to be part of the event. You see, greed has become our god and corruption our culture. And I think that's the major, and everybody has identified corruption as a major clog in the wheel of our democratic progress. And if anything is not done, and when you talk about corruption, it's easy for any government to come and say, oh, I am fighting corruption. But corruption is more of perception than incident. So you can say, oh, I'm fighting corruption. If you do not come across, especially at the topmost top, if your president does not come across as somebody who is genuinely fighting corruption, if your governors do not come across as people that are genuinely fighting corruption, then you discover that every unit of government, every agent of government will always find a way to want to cut corner. And I manage the fund, and that's why when you see the corruption in Nigeria, it's a subject of both followership and leadership. I manage a fund at a point in time to give to a particular set of people. I would not be able to mention their name. Do you know that I paid a certain amount of money out, and because people could not bribe their way through, they ganged up and they started making up stories. And I said to them, when I was addressing them at the point, I said, all of you would not have complained because one did a voice note and sent to me and said, are you Jesus Christ? I told them that many of you would not have complained if I had allowed the system to take bribe and settle you privately. So in Nigeria, they are always willing givers because our system has been compromised. And you know that the only way to go through the process is actually to bribe. And once you build an economy like that, where bribe is the only thing you can give to get what belongs to you, then you will see that it will have a spiral effect on the entire economy. So it's not just about government as we have it today. And thank God our leaders know that corruption is one of the major issues. In 2006, one of the reasons why former President Olusegun Obasanjo opposed his then deputy from becoming a president was concerned about corruption. In 2014, one of the reasons why Nigerians voted Buhari massively was not because of his economic skill to turn things around, was because of the perception that everybody thought that our major issue was corruption. And once we vote in a Buhari, he will be able to solve the problem of corruption. Whether he did that is a separate or different thing entirely. So corruption now has trickled down to every unit. And one thing that democracy has been able to do, you know, during military rule in Nigeria, there was massive corruption, but they call it controlled corruption. Democracy has been able to democratize corruption in a way that at the federal level, stealing is going on. At the state level, people are stealing blind. At the local government level, everyone seems to be stealing. And your state governors now, in case you are not aware, have more money than they've ever had. And we must continue to ask them the question, all of these monies that you are having, are you feeding corruption with it, or you are trying to create a situation that will make the Nigerian people lead a better life?
Okay, too many stories to look through. Unfortunately, it seems that we have run out of time, but we are just going to show you the front pages of all the papers in the next 1 minute before we head out of the studio. We've looked at the Punch and the Nigerian Tribune, the front page of the Daily Independent. 1 year after Dana Air suspension, passengers refund trapped, staff agitate over unpaid salaries. And we can see Ondo farmers shut expressway over plan to grade cocoa plantations. Those who send me to prison must account for it, according to Dele Farotimi. I saw that interview. So many stories there, but in 30 seconds, do you think that there's going to really be any accounting, those who sent Farotimi to prison, in terms of law enforcement agents, judiciary, the private citizens involved? Do you think there'll be any accounting?
I think there are private conversations that have already taken place, and they are still taking place. And the essence of those private conversations is to arrive at a point where everybody, at least we feel that, oh, whatever has happened has happened. With the intervention of important leaders in the Southwest and at the national level, I'm not seeing something that looks like a war breaking out of it, but I see peace. It may not be the way all the parties want it, but at the end of the day, I'm just saying that there's going to be a roundtable kind of conversation that will put everything to rest.
Dotun Ojon, thank you for joining us this morning.